welcome to episode 179 of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. As usual, it's been a pretty busy news week. The much-awaited refreshed Model 3 Performance is now in Tesla's Osborne Park showroom and is available for anyone to view. Tesla is in the process of dramatically expanding its north of the river presence with the commencement of refurbishment activities at the 7,500 square metre site at 419 Scarborough Beach Road, Osborne Park. And that was this week's news. Indeed it was, and welcome to Ask Us Anything. As is customary, and usually just to get a few pregnant pauses, if anyone is new and you're comfortable in doing so, please unmute and say hello.
Hello. It's probably coming up as Susan, but I'm Brenton, a new member, Susan's partner. We've recently become a 2 Tesla family. Sue bought her 3 12 months ago, and I drank the Kool-Aid at the same time and have now purchased a Y, pre-loved Y. So, and signed up, forked out the $20 to become a member. Anyway, that's my story.
Well, that's all we need to hear of this episode. It's time to go now. That is fantastic. Congratulations to you too. The only thing better than a one
better
Tesla.
wheels though. I've got
You do
better
too.
wheels. Yeah.
And I dare say that that's very wise of Brenton to
Yes.
Not
Subordinate himself. Yes.
yes, exactly. Now the only thing better than a 1 Tesla family is obviously a 2 Tesla family, and yeah, Brenton, I don't blame you. It's unbearable to drive a fossil fuel vehicle when you've got a electric car in the family. It's just unbearable.
Absolutely.
It was too painful. So anyway.
And my brother is a CO2 rev head. And so we're going to form a small subgroup of Tokwa. It's going to be a subgroup of Tokwa, Tesla Owners Club of Western Australia, Rockingham, and we're all going to go and park outside his house and polish our Teslas and blah, 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 and do a light show, etc. So, yes, can't wait to do that.
All he needs to know to convert to a Tesla is he needs to sit himself in a Performance Model 3, which incidentally has just arrived in Osborne Park, so people can see it now. In fact, the showroom closed half an hour ago, but they're open 6 days. And as soon as he's driven in the new Performance Model 3, he will not be able to help himself. There's a gentleman, I don't know if he's with us at the moment, Damo. I think he's lurking. He was an absolute dyed-in-the-wool petrol head. Loved them. Love the smell, love the noise, love the vibration. Suffice to say, once he got his Performance Model 3, everything else is just very vanilla. And,
well, we might invite Damo to be a one-day member of the Rockingham sub-branch, and he can try and convince my brother. When my brother drove my car, he said, I want one, but it didn't last very long.
He just needs to drive the performance version, and all of those doubts will go out the window. Incidentally, I actually believe Damo is the spiritual head of the Rockingham Tesla Owners branch. So, but we'll let him speak for himself a little bit later on. But yeah, once again, Brenton and Susan, congratulations on the double arrival. That's awesome.
Well, would you like to know a bit more of the story?
Yes, just before we do that, we'll just throw to anyone else who is new, and then we'll go right back to you. So mainly to elicit that pregnant pause that I keep banging on about, is there anyone else who would like to unmute and say hello if you're comfortable in doing so? There's a pregnant pause. Alrighty. Okay, so back to you, Susan. Tell us a story. Okay.
So Brenton had been looking for a while, a month or so, and at a used Y, secondhand Y, and he had a phone call out of the blue from a young man called Adam. And anyway, it turned out that Adam worked in virtual sales at Tesla. So we went up to Tesla, Osmond Park, to meet Adam and look at the car, etc. And so it was kind of serendipity playing out as we were lurking in the showroom, and the salesman who sold me my 3, Lee, jumped out and said, "Hi, Sue, how are you going? Blah, blah, blah. Well, we're just here to buy another Tesla and buying it off Adam. Adam's my best friend." And Adam told us that Lee was his best friend. And so it was really quite a nice little purchase in the end, wasn't it?
Yep, all going well. All going
Awesome, man. Look, the great thing is, as anyone who owns a Tesla appreciates really well, it's zero pressure sales. It's just super easy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They don't ask you questions like, what's it going to take for us to get you in a Tesla today? None of that. You don't have to haggle over pricing. You just know what you're going to get, and that's all it is. Or that you get exactly what you want.
Is this the right part of the discussion? I actually have a couple of questions. The Y that I bought has full self-driving, and I've got a couple of questions on that, but I don't know, is this the right part of the meeting to bring it up? Or,
Yeah,
or do
absolutely.
You want
This is literally ask us anything, and that's the whole purpose of it. So yeah,
Right,
far away.
okay. Well, I've only had the car, well, not even a week yet. So I've just started playing with the full self-driving and learning how it works, and that's fine but I couldn't get the exit. As far as I'm aware, and I know there's a lot of restrictions because of the local regulations on what it can and can't do, but I thought that one of the things that it was allowed to do was take the exit lane off a freeway or a highway. So once you put the navigation in and your exit lane was nominated, you come along there, and I couldn't get it to do it. I've selected everything, but I don't know, is that allowed, or is it something that I'm doing wrong? Or
Yes, it
haven't
is. So
selected?
yeah, so make sure under autopilot you select navigate. Actually, it's under the navigate section, I think. You select navigate on autopilot. So
Okay.
now it only really applies mainly to the freeway, so Mitchell
Yeah.
and Banana Freeway. I think.
Yeah, well, I was on the freeway, yep.
Okay, so what you'll notice is if you're on standard autopilot, you will see 2 blue lines outlining the lane. If you are on navigate on autopilot, you'll see a single, much thicker blue line down the center.
Right,
So,
yes, I haven't seen that yet. Okay.
okay, so go into your settings, into your autopilot settings, make sure you enable that. You can have it actually by default be enabled at the start of every journey, and you can also undo that. Now, some of the more advanced features on Navigate and Autopilot is automatic lane changing if you wish. In my personal experience, actually, to be honest, I haven't used it for quite a while. Actually, I might just ask the room, what does everyone think of automatic lane changing on Navigate and Autopilot?
I quite like it, but just like you, Harold, I don't have it turned on. So I've got it set up so that so when I press the indicator, it then changes lanes for me. And that's what I found works the best and is most reliable. The automatic lane changing isn't quite there yet, but let's not forget the version of full self-driving beta that we've got in Australia, no human has worked on for like 5 or 6 years. So it's a really old version. It's nothing like what they have in the US. Yeah, I found that to be the best for me, is just to tell it when I want it to overtake.
Yeah, similar if I may. I have it so that it suggests, and then if it says, oh, change lane, you go, yeah, I'm happy to change lanes. You just hit the indicator, it changes lanes and does everything correctly. I also find on Navigate and Autopilot works much better for the change to the left lane than just auto steer. Many a time I've had to jump out of auto steer and change its mind and wait forever, but during Navigate and Autopilot, it works a lot better.
Um, absolutely. Now, one of the reasons why Navigate and Autopilot, if you have automatic lane changing turned on, and apologies to anyone that doesn't have FSD or in fact enhanced autopilot. Obviously, this is a little bit boring, but and we're getting into the weeds a little bit. But one of the issues is it doesn't always make appropriate lane change decisions. It usually does it for traffic flow. So if it sees a lane that is quicker, it'll say, for example, go into the right-hand lane. Say, imagine the Kwinana Freeway. You got 3 lanes. Say you're going to get off several kilometres ahead, so you've got to be in the left lane eventually. You could be in the middle lane, which is perfectly fine on Navigate and Autopilot. It'll suddenly decide that, well, the middle lane's a bit slow. It'll go into the right lane, and it'll sort of stay in the right lane for quite a long time, and then it'll sort of struggle to get itself back to take the exit. So I think, like others have suggested, if you don't use Navigate and Autopilot per se, even though it is a very nice party trick for it to literally put the indicator, this is when you approach a freeway exit, put the indicator on and it will take itself off the freeway. It's a awesome party trick, but day to day you've got other slight issues. But as Steve said, you can do it as semi-automatic lane changes where it will suggest one, and you have to actually either tap on the screen to accept or, like Steve said, hit your indicator. Use it that way. What else was I going to say? There are a few other party tricks it can do, which many of us have tried. And I guess the problem is we're sort of guilty of, we've decided that at the time we tried it, it wasn't as good as we thought. So we've stopped using it, such as automatic parking, which, to be honest, I don't know how good that is at the moment. That being either reverse parking or parallel parking, which in my experience has been good at times and not been so good at other times. But
Parallel parking used to be almost perfect about a little bit more than 6 months ago. And just in the last few months, and this is what often happens with Tesla software, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. With parallel parking, we're at that 1 step back stage because, quite often you will want to climb the curb or it will just have to, just that goes in too shallow. It just doesn't have that that part of the equation correct at the moment as to how deep it goes into the car parking bay.
now, something it just occurred to me because Pete mentioned software updates is most cars will probably have, well, certainly Model 3s and Ys will have gotten an update that allows automatic high beams. Sorry, what's it called?
Adaptive high.
Adaptive. Sorry, thanks, Steve. Adaptive high beams. Please go into your car into the light section or lights section of your car's menu and make sure that it's turned on, just in case, because I think sometimes these features aren't turned on when they're firstly introduced. So do go into your menu and have a look if it says adaptive high beam, because that will transform your experience.
You know what's annoying? You know what's annoying though, Harold? So if you've got maybe Brenton and Susan, is your Model 3 an older car? How old's your Model 3?
No, the threes, well, actually, it's 12 months old this month. It was May 23 we bought the 3.
Okay, won't be an issue with you, but if you've got an older Model 3, all the Model Ys will do it because all the Model Ys have got the Matrix headlights. But with some of my older Model 3s that don't have the Matrix headlights, I don't like the automatic high beams because it's that case of 1 step back at the moment where they're good, but they're not great. They used to be great. So I don't want the automatic high beams on my non-Matrix lights cars, but definitely want them on the Matrix lights cars because the adaptive high beams are fantastic. They're not perfect, but they're fantastic.
Is there a way you can tell if you've got the Matrix lights or?
No, just look at your menu. So just go into your light menu for the lights, and you've got various settings for interior lights, all sorts of stuff, footwell lights and highlight lights, dome lights. You'll also see automatic. You'll either see automatic high beam, in which case you either don't have the matrix lights or you don't have the software update yet. Now, just speaking of which, do make sure if you haven't already, in fact, this applies to everyone that's got a new Tesla, do make sure to learn your Tesla into your Wi-Fi at home. So that is actually the only effective way the car will get regular updates. It is true, if there is a safety related update, Tesla will push it. If your car's not connected to Wi-Fi, Tesla will push it over the air through the mobile phone network, but any regular updates, it will only push through Wi-Fi connections because it's just a lot of data. So just as a little bit of an aside, please do make sure when you get your car, do learn it into your house Wi-Fi. If for whatever reason your signal strength is not strong enough, then obviously you can play with things like most modems have directional antennas. They have several antennas in the back. Just as a little aside, make sure your antennas are at right angles to each other. In especially the ones that have got, say, 3 antennas, just put one up, one across, and one sideways, and that'll be the best chance of getting a broader signal. So if it says automatic high beams, that's the ones Pete was talking about, which can be annoying sometimes. If it says adaptive high beam, you'll either say one or the other. It never says both. Then definitely select adaptive. The only criticism that's come about so far is you will catch out some pedestrians. So what the adaptive does is basically when it detects cars either going towards you or away from you, it will black out that region of the high beam matrix pixels and only illuminate things that are not cars or pedestrians, but it doesn't do all pedestrians. So the first night I used it, I blinded a pedestrian and felt sorry for him. So I'm a little bit more aware of what it's doing, and you can just simply turn off the high beam just as you would. I was going to say, there's 2 different cars now. You've got the Highlands, which have got, is that a button, Pete? I think it's a button to do the high beams.
Yeah.
It must be, because there's no stalk.
It is.
And on
Steering wheel, yes. It is,
and on
yeah.
Model Ys and the older 3s, it's a stalk on the left-hand side that you push forward, or yes, push forward, I think it is, or back. No, towards the front of the car
Well,
to turn off.
if you pull it towards you, the high beams are just like any other car. The high beam's only on while you've got the stalk still pulled towards you. And if you push it away from you, it should lock it in. But if you've got automatic high beams and you try and push it forward, half the times it won't stay there because it's doing the high beams automatically. So it will decide itself. Yeah. So.
All right.
All right. Brenton, any other, actually, before I go back to you, Brenton and Susan, is there anyone else that's got a question? Particularly anyone who's new or have only just gotten their car, or even better, if you haven't got a car yet and you're thinking about it?
I have a question regarding the high beams, if I could, Harold.
Yes,
Darren. With my experience with the adaptive matrix high beams is I can actually see in slow motion almost the pixels turning themselves off, and they're too slow. By the time the car that's coming towards me has driven into it, and they're flashing me, so I've turned it back off again. Is there a way around that?
No, I think it's a matter of Tesla getting better at it, unfortunately. Okay. So it might be a case, because I mean one thing the high beams does, and I'm not even sure if this is legal, to be honest, but I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert in WA traffic rules. I'm not sure you're actually supposed to use your high beams in a built-up residential area, and the car does. As long as it's a bit of a quiet street. So if it's the freeway, it won't, or well-lit parts of the freeway. But if it's not that well lit, it will often put the high beams on and do its best to block out cars and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, you might be right, Darren. In some places, it's easy just to push your stalk forward or do whatever you have to do on your Highland to undo high beams.
I was so excited when that came out. I thought, perfect. We've got a solution to this problem. Excellent. And after a day or two of using it, I'm blinding people. I thought, I can't keep using this. It's dangerous. So I turned it off again.
It's going to be very
I-
interesting. I'm going to find out. Sorry, Pete, 2 seconds. I'm going to find out in 7 hours what it's like in the middle of the night down Albany Highway, and I think it's going to be awesome with trucks going the other way and all that sort of stuff. So I
Right,
think in
careful.
the rural areas it's going to be fantastic.
Are you going to Albany?
No,
Oh, I thought you said when you said Albany, I thought like the country, because we're going in about 2 weeks, about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we've got the adaptive headlights, and I'm wondering whether I should leave them on or turn them off.
yes, oh no, I absolutely. Well, I'll tell you next week.
Okay.
But look, I'm highly convinced that it'll be perfect.
Right.
And as I sort of mentioned last week, I'm 100% convinced that if I had adaptive high beams when I did my last lap, I would not have hit that cow.
Yeah, right.
Near,
Well, I'm thinking a
wherever it was.
kangaroo,
Yeah.
like kangaroo thing
Um,
and turns off.
Yes, absolutely. Paul, you've got your hand up. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you go, Paul, and then Pete. Actually, sorry, I'll throw to you, Pete, for your comment, and then we'll go to Paul.
No, it's all good.
Oh, okay, Paul, go for it.
Look, I really like the new the lights. I turned it on. You do have to turn it on, so I haven't had a problem with them. But okay. And the other thing that I really like, which I haven't had, fortunately, hadn't had a chance to experience, is the speed camera sensor.
It's not a sensor. Okay, so just so that everyone knows, yes. And by the way, there's a new feature that which I think you have to turn on as well.
Yeah.
On the very latest update is to ring the chime when you're near a speed camera. However, this is not a feed from Waze. All of the information that the car has on camera locations is old, and they also only show the fixed and known camera locations, not those transportable trailer things, not the tripod ones that things like apps like Waze tells you in almost real time as soon as someone reports it. So for those who are keen to rely on it to see where cameras really are, it's only the very fixed ones.
Right.
It's not anything else. So just as a
Wondered
caveat
about that.
there.
Because that's apparently illegal. It's apparently illegal, according to my wife who works for the police.
To indicate where a camera is, or to
Yeah.
detect one, you mean?
Well, that doesn't quite make sense because the main roads has got signs that tell you that there's, before there's a fixed camera location. And-
Not
those
so
tripod
much
ones-
fixed, not so much fixed ones, but the ones that are, I thought it was going to sense sort of the random ones.
No. That's
But
okay. So the thing that's illegal is a radar detector. Is illegal,
Yeah,
but not
in WA though, in WA is different from the other states in Australia, where it's legal, so it's okay to own one. It's illegal to use it. In the other states, it's illegal to even own one. So that's the distinction.
Right.
WA with the radar detectors.
Thanks, Pete.
But yeah, even the tripod ones, when they first came out, the operator would go out and 50 or 100 meters before they'd put a little sign on the side of the road, letting you know that there's a multi-node
that's
there.
right.
Then they started putting them closer. Then they started putting them behind the camera, and now they're not putting them anywhere. In fact, I saw a car with a tripod hiding behind a bush, like 20. He had to go off road to hide behind this bush to try and nab, people going past. So it's gone from it being potentially something that would reduce accidents to now just being purely a revenue generating measure. Because if they're trying to hide it, if they're trying to, just nab you without you knowing, obviously they're not interested in you slowing down. They're just interested in you being caught and getting a ticket.
Yeah.
and the merit points, and actually modifying your behaviour once you get it, and get upset at yourself for getting busted. But I
Yeah.
mean, look, the best way
Thanks
to
for the
avoid that is
clarification, guys. That's great.
the best way to avoid that is use traffic aware cruise control, because the car almost always knows what the speed limit is. Although having
Yeah,
said that, it sometimes can
great.
get it wrong.
That is really good. I've got mine set to that. Yeah, it's
It-
good.
If speed cameras, if the governments were really interested in slowing people down, they wouldn't have these portable cameras. They would have the average speed cameras. Those ones, there's nothing you can do with those, and you're pretty much guaranteed that people are going to do the speed limit between the 2 points. So yeah, that's the most effective way of actually slowing people down. You won't get many tickets, you won't generate much revenue, but you will actually stop people from speeding.
By the way, you know how we've all seen those little cameras pop up on light poles with the two
point-to-point stuff.
antennas?
Yeah.
They're like white with two little antennas. In the UK, they are the cameras that they use to do the average speed checks. And the UK has tens and tens of thousands of them.
I can
And-
corroborate this.
And they have so many, it's just insane. Like in one stretch of road in one town, I've gone through 3 consecutive, like the accurate speed cameras where they actually have markings on the road as well, fiducial markings, and the ones that have average speed. And it's really funny, in the UK, where there are cameras, everyone mostly does a speed limit. In the very few sections of what they call freeway or motorway, if there's not a camera, they are doing 80 miles an hour. And
So I've seen it on on long weekends. I mean, the speed limit's 70 miles an hour, but you've got the left lane is 80 miles an hour, the middle lane's 90 miles an hour, the right hand lane's 100 miles an hour.
without incriminating myself,
Mark's nodding his head in agreement.
without incriminating myself in a foreign territory, which I'm not in at the moment, I just decided it was like the American approach, where I just acted like a fish in the school, and I just followed what the other fish were doing. And there were places where autopilot wouldn't go that fast. I think autopilot cuts out at 85 miles an hour. And so I just had to go on tack and just follow the fish. It's insane.
You know, on the speed camera thing, I've never seen one in a school zone. Which is
Oh, I
where
have.
have you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've been pinged. I got knocked off.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, there you go then. 'Cause
Yeah, I've seen them too.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not in all school zones if they're really serious about slowing people down. But
Just
Absolutely.
about those little cameras you've been seeing there, Harold, I believe they're about to turn them on for point-to-point averaging.
Yep.
And this brings me to my next point. I believe that the latest update of version 12 UI has part of an interface that can calculate, and this was my question for anyone, if they've done it, point-to-point average speed on your trip. So it's available on the Tesla, on the version 12, I think it is. And if you look at some of the YouTube clips, there's actually average speeds on your trip, on your journey.
Wow. That
Yeah.
would be cool.
It's on, I believe it's on version 12 of the UI.
Yes, I had it working last week.
So you've seen it.
Oh,
Yes.
Awesome.
oh, pray tell, Mark. So what's it do? How does it work?
Oh, I'm no techie, so I got no idea how it works.
No, sorry,
All I
no.
know is-
See, what comes up? How do you use it?
It comes up automatically if you're navigating. You have to be navigating, just like with the speed camera warnings. And it when I noticed it, it was averaging the speed right to one decimal point.
Wow.
So it's extreme. It seems to be extremely accurate.
It looks terrific. It looks like it's. I haven't seen it for real. I've seen it in the YouTube clips, but it just as Mark said, it appears within a decimal point of your average speed. So you can go a little bit faster in this section, a little bit slower in that section, and your average speed over that period is what it is. But those little cameras you was talking about, Harold, they're about to be turned on as the point-to-point average all across the state.
God help us. We're all going to be very good at
Mm.
doing the speed limit on average.
Out of interest,
According to the freeway,
sorry.
sorry, I've just looked at the freeway stuff. They say they are not going to be used by the police. They're simply used to measure their traffic and their speeds. It says there, no, the cameras and technology in our smart freeways are only used to manage our traffic conditions. Main roads does not enforce the road rules or the penalties. That is done by the West Australian Police.
However, I did hear on the ABC radio, of course, that
Yep.
there are those cameras that are under the Mill Point Road.
Yes, those are different. Yeah,
Yeah, and they are
Yeah.
they detected
cameras, phones,
17,000 mobile
Yeah.
phone infractions
and
and
seatbelts.
Seatbelt.
and they are doing 182 kilometers an hour.
Yeah,
So those cameras, the legislation's been changed, and there are tenders out for supply of many more of those,
Yep.
and they will be turned on and infracting people. And in fact, I think those same cameras were also being used, it was proposed they were being used to attempt to detect impaired driving as well by observing the car's behavior or its motion to see if you're weaving and possibly impaired with alcohol or other substances. So they're getting a lot more intelligent.
Or
Yeah,
using
it is-
automatic
it's
lane
definitely
change.
Or using, that's right. They'll have to have a Tesla filter and go, just ignore all Teslas, because sometimes you'll notice, particularly people who are new to Tesla, when you do a semi-automatic lane change, which is, now that's if you've got enhanced autopilot or FSD, if you've paid for FSD, which actually, by the way, very important point, not a single car that's driven by a member of the public in Australia it has the FSD software, not one. Even though it's called FSD, it's all just autopilot, and it's got nothing to do with what FSD is doing. As Pete sort of alluded to earlier, where development has mostly frozen for several years. If you hear about how awesome FSD is in America, and you drive your own Tesla and go, well, my car doesn't do anything like that, don't worry. As soon as they turn on FSD in Australia, it will be a transformation. The beta program, or what's called supervised. Yeah, anyway, so if you do a semi-automatic lane change, what the car can notoriously do is halfway through the lane change, for whatever reason, suddenly decide to back out, and it swings wildly back to its original lane. And I think that's what Steve was basically alluding to. If you did that in front of the smart freeway, yeah, they'll have to have a Tesla filter that says, don't worry about Teslas. The guy's not drunk. It's just his car.
Just a quick one.
Yes,
Can you hear
with-
me?
With the smart freeway.
Oh, sorry. Oh, actually, sorry. That was Peter Harris. Actually, we'll go. Sorry, Mark, you were waiting. We'll go to you, Mark, and then Peter
So,
Harris.
yeah, just a very quick one. When I was doing quite a lot of driving just recently across country, I was quite often getting into speed limits where you drop you right down for roadworks or whatever, and it dropped to 60k. You came out the other side of this 60k on adaptive cruise control, and it didn't see the 110 resume thing, and you're stuck then on 60k for the next 100k's or however long until you got to the next 110k or 100k. Is there any way around that?
Yes. So Damo, I know he might be listening. He actually printed up life-size copies of the speed limit sign, 110 sign. He actually also did one for the Northern Territory, which is 130. He's then shown an image of his daughter. Well, it wasn't in front of the car, but he just showed a photo. But he could get his daughter to go in front of the car, show the sign, and the car would go, oh, yes, the speed limit is 110, and fix it that way. That's one reason why.
That's a bit difficult while you're moving. Surely going down the wing of the car and dangling it.
Well, we need a stick. What you need is a stick with like a playing card and the same and a photo, and you just put it out the front, drive slowly, and just stick it out the front. That's why Pete and I do not claim that we used autopilot 100% of the time, which we would have done on our laps, because there were those, as you've found, Mark, those
Yeah.
either it was roadwork signs or literally in the middle of nowhere, the car just decided that the speed limit was 50 or 60. And then you just have to decide, do I use my right foot on autopilot to adjust my speed while the car steers? Or do I, which I find a bit arduous, or do I just put it on cruise control at what it thinks is the wrong speed and just steer for a bit? And that's what we generally do.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay, so sorry, now, before Mark, it was, Peter Harris, I think you were going to say something or ask something.
Oh, and only that I got pinged at a school zone. But one thing that pisses me off is the windscreen wipers going all by themselves.
Yep. Welcome to automatic technology. It can happen. You can get a bug on your on where the camera is. You know, you can almost like jump in a shadow or something and decide that was a raindrop and then turn the wipers on when you've got a dry windscreen, very dry. I think you can turn off, I think these days you can, no, you can't. You can't turn off automatic wipers when you're on autopilot.
One thing that I found works in that situation, Peter, is to take it off autopilot, and then it will let you turn off windscreen wipers and just drive for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes with the windscreen wipers off, and then it somehow learns that it's okay to have the windscreen wipers off. Put your autopilot back on, it won't. Most of the time it will learn.
Just with ordinary driving, it does it. Not autopilot.
You've got to turn it off, Pete. So you've got to go into the. Is it the lights menu? I think it's the lights. Or if as soon as as soon as it turns on, right? As soon as it starts wiping, on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you'll actually see the settings for wipers. And if you can't find it, just deliberately put your wiper on and then tell it to turn off. Now, actually, on reflection, I just remember now, in the car, in Model Y I was using in the UK, which has got the same settings as here, when you activate autopilot, it will insist on turning on automatic high beams, but wipers, but you can turn it off while you're in autopilot. It's just that if you disengage because you've changed a lane or done something, every time you re-engage, you've got to remember to turn off automatic wipers. And in the UK, that was a huge problem because over there, their so-called motorways are 2-mile stretches of proper motorway followed by a roundabout, and then another 2 miles of freeway and a roundabout. So every time you got to disengage and it becomes a bit painful. So just do that. If you engage autopilot, you can then quickly disengage automatic wipers if they haven't already wiped.
Okay, but I'm 100% sure it happens just normal driving, not an autopilot.
Yes, but that's because you've got automatic high beams turned on in your menu setting. So you've got automatic wipers. I keep saying wipers.
Okay.
So just
all right.
turn off automatic wipers. Problem is, every time you engage autopilot, it will turn it on for you, as in automatic. So you just got to remember to, if you've used autopilot, turn it off.
Yeah. Okay. Now the second thing is,
Peter, just quickly before you go on to the next thing, you can set up a little shortcut just by dragging the lights menu into your into your bar at the bottom. That's what I've done, and that's quite handy because it's always in the same spot. So you can either do that or just press the button on the left stalk from the side, and that just does one wipe, and then your menu will come up for about 3 seconds in the bottom right-hand corner.
Thanks, Pete. The other thing was to do with the new performance. I've heard a few people say is it really worth it? Any comments from anybody?
It looks $1 million, and the seats are brilliant. And the tires are nice and fat in the back, and it's got carbon fiber spoilers front and back, and there's a carbon fiber bit on the dash as well, which is quite nice. But yeah, the seats are brilliant. It's got really good suspension. Great wheels, great tyres. It is a little bit faster, 0 to 100. So the Australian time,
point two of a second.
It's 3.1 seconds, yeah, 0 to 100 rather than 3.3. But I think the bigger difference is going to be the quarter mile. So from all reports, it sounds like you'll be pulling stronger for longer, if that makes sense. So one of the criticisms of the performance is that it's great 0 to 100, but it starts to wane at the higher speeds. But a bit like the Model S Plaid, it's supposed to pull for a bit longer. So yeah, really keen to see what the quarter mile times are like.
What do you know what the price is for them? I haven't even looked on the app.
Starts at 89 grand. By the way.
How much?
Not just under 90 grand.
89.
Okay. Now, can you move your FSD with them at this stage or not?
Not at this stage, but Tesla will. That Elon Musk said they're only going to do it once, but they have done it since. I think they're just going to keep on using it as a demand lever, and the times of the year when sales for Teslas are the lowest traditionally is always in the first quarter. So if it comes up again, perhaps maybe first quarter next year, who knows?
Now, for those prices there, it's $89,120 drive away, no more to pay for the Poverty Pearl White. What is key in that price, if we look up, is there is no luxury car tax. So for people with businesses or wanting to do a novated lease, it becomes a very tax effective purchase or lease arrangement if you are particularly in a higher tax bracket, because that fully qualifies for the 0 rating of fringe benefits tax. So that's
a big difference, Peter. For your first performance, you would have probably paid over 10 or probably close to 15 grand in stamp duty and luxury car tax and everything. So stamp duty is still applicable, but no LCT, which is great.
And just to emphasize this point, particularly if you're a business owner or you're working for a business, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can novate the lease, which basically, it's a little bit like dealing with a duty-free shop. The deal is very good, but it's not quite, the interest rate's a little bit higher. The other one is that the business themselves actually buys it and you salary sacrifice, or if you own the business does it. It's not exempt from fringe benefits tax. It is 0 rated for fringe benefits tax, but it's still reportable. So if you rely on family tax benefit and a few other things, there's a concessional super contribution that if your salary and super contributions go above, I think $250,000, you then have to pay a 15% surcharge on the super. Any fringe benefits that you get in relation to a complying EV is included for that determination. But for anyone that's thinking about it, talk to your accountant. It basically makes a $70,000 Tesla cheaper to have as a company car or as a novated lease car than a $30,000 petrol car.
Well,
it's a very big leap.
Sorry?
Compared to an average car in Australia, which costs just under $42,000, it works out roughly about $100 a month cheaper. So it works out cheaper from day dot.
Now, and by the way, if there's anyone out there either in the room or watching on YouTube or X/Twitter, if you've already bought it, that you can actually still novate it. If you're an employee or if you're an owner of the business, you can also do the same thing. The novating lease companies will actually novate it as a second-hand vehicle. Now, the thing here is, I think for this 0 rating of fringe benefits tax, the car had to be used for the first time or registered for the first time on the 1st of July last year. And at that time, so it had to be created. You can do it on second-hand cars, but they had to be first licensed the 1st of July last year, and they had to have been strictly exempt from luxury car tax. If there was $1 of luxury car tax, that second-hand car is forever poisoned and cannot ever be part of this scheme. So notes there.
Harold,
Thank you for all that.
Steve. Yes.
is it time to play the disclaimer?
Yeah. I'm going to make it shorter, but let's just do the long one anyway, just for fun.
Yes, sir.
Still funny. And a big shout out to Peter Petrosky for kindly writing it. And here it is.
All views expressed are solely personal opinions, which you should not treat as personal advice, general advice, legal advice, tax advice, insurance advice, financial or investment advice, or advice of any other type.
You should not treat any contents as a solicitation, inducement, or recommendation to undertake any investment, to buy or sell any security, investment product or service, to follow any investment or trading strategy, or to enter, not enter, break or avoid any contract or insurance policy. Any comments are solely the expression of personal opinions and should be treated as such. All contents are for entertainment, educational and informational purposes only. All information provided and all comments made are general in nature and should not be acted upon without seeking professional guidance tailored to your individual circumstances. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Investing involves risks, including potential loss of principal and or other assets. Consult with qualified and licensed professionals before making any financial or investment decisions. Note Topper is committed with no impacted for organizations allowed on the internet,
Rightio, consider
I
it.
missed that last bit, Harold. Could you repeat it?
What is that last bit?
No. Now, go on, Steve. What were you going to say after that?
No, I just thought that as we're talking about FBT and accountants and stuff like that, we haven't heard it for a week or two.
Very good. And if anyone is sad about Tesla's share price, have a look at RethinkX. So just go to rethinkx.com and look at their blog. And there is a very detailed blog written or co-written by Tony Seba, who, if you don't know who he is, you need to find out, because he's a gentleman that basically, was it 2013, Pete? I think roughly that time frame.
Yeah, it was about 10 years out that he called.
He published a book. Yeah, he published a book and research that basically, at that time, the price per kilowatt hour of EV battery storage capacity was $1,000 per kilowatt hour. He stated that over that following decade, that price would steadily march downwards to below $100 a kilowatt hour. He also stated that, EVs at the time were very, very, very expensive. In fact, a Tesla Model S was, I think, $80,000 at the time in 2013 when it first came out, roughly, or 2012 or 11. He then said that by 2024, I think it was, bearing in mind this is 11 years into the future, that an EV would be produced at a cost of less than $10,000. Everyone at the time literally laughed and said, this guy is off the planet. He clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. Lithium ion batteries that were really just, they were used in laptops and all that sort of stuff. They were an emerging technology. There was no way you could have a 10 times reduction in that cost. Anyway, as it turns out, he was wrong about his prediction with the $10,000 EV in 2024. It actually occurred in 2023. So it was a little bit pessimistic. So have a look. And the reason why I'm suggesting this is, if you are interested in Tesla as a company and its future performance, do have a look at this blog post from basically Tony Seba and his research think tank. And basically this time we are the horses. And the reason why he mentions that is there's a famous photo in New York taken in the year 1900 that shows a sea of horses and one automobile. Fast forward to 1913, and there is a sea of automobiles and one single horse. And so it basically, and in fact, there are in this blog, in fact, it's actually here. There you go. Here, it's actually on his blog. You've got the single car there, and you've got the single horse here. He also then has these. The reason why he calls himself Rethink X is the crossover point of an adoption S-curve, whereby horses were 100% down to nothing, cars were nothing, up to 100%, and it basically crosses over. And he's done this with many things, and he's even done it with the precursor of crystal meth, where it used to use pseudoephedrine, and now you use some other compound to make crystal meth. So it applies to all sorts of industries and all sorts of things. But basically, he explains that now with the humanoid robots, we are becoming the horses. We will be replaced as labor, manual labor, by humanoid robots, and it's something that's unstoppable. It's inevitable, and it's something that thankfully for many of us shareholders, if we are, that's something that Tesla is putting a lot of effort into, even though we don't really see a lot of it at the moment. But yeah, have a look at that article, rethinkx.com. Especially if you're sad about the share price at the moment, and you want a little bit of a long-term boost.
This is why things like the brain chip-to-brain interface that Neuralink is working on will become really important, because you know, you can imagine how fast AI is improving at the moment, and imagine that in 5 years' time. Imagine you know, the humanoid robot being able to do 90% of what a human can do. Where very quickly humans are going to become irrelevant. So yeah, the importance of that interface is for us to at least be able to communicate or keep up with the AI, because you don't want AI to treat us like, you know, we treat dogs and cats at the moment. We you know, we love our dogs, we love our cats, but we don't let them sit at the dinner table. You know, we throw them scratch. So yeah.
And he basically quotes this as the single most significant disruption to everything on the planet, to all the humans. That it puts the Industrial Revolution to shame. It puts every other ruction and disturbance, it pales to insignificance compared to what's going to happen over the next 25 years. And it's as soon as that. And anyone that sits here today and says, you can't even get a robot to do whatever, beat an egg properly or something, just think about the people that had solar panels on their house in the early 90s. In fact, I don't even know you could even buy panels in the early 90s. Maybe they were very exotic, and it was basically like a novelty, an extraordinarily expensive novelty. And here we are today where it's the cheapest thing you can get. In fact, it's cheaper as a building material. I've actually used solar panels to effectively close in part of a pergola, because where you get extra energy, and it was cheaper than buying a sheet of whatever at Bunnings. To get 2 square meters of a panel at $100 and something was less than a panel of plastic.
We used to use solar panels instead of whiteboards. So we'd get a white marker on the black silicon, because that was literally cheaper than buying a whiteboard.
Yep.
Harold, it was only 2007 that the iPhone came out. You have a look round and see anyone who hasn't got an iPhone. If you go on any train or on a shopping centre, everybody has an iPhone. Only came out 2007 and it was laughed at.
That's a great point, Mark, because
you've got to
in
look at
2006, we all, with very few exceptions, had a Nokia smartphone, and Nokia were the masters of the
BlackBerry.
universe. Or a sorry, yes, and if you're different, yes, absolutely. But most consumers just had a Nokia, and there were Motorola's and there were other things, but Nokia were the masters of the universe. They could do no wrong. You know, you'd thought that Nokia would last 100 years as a huge brand, and look at the fruit company that brought out this weird flat screen that didn't even, its battery life wasn't even a day, when the Nokias could last, the black and white ones could last nearly a week. And yet, like you say, Mark, we've all got one way or another. And that parallel with Apple is a very good one too, because Apple does not have the majority of the smartphone market. But guess what? It makes the majority of the profit. And not financial advice, as we've had in the disclaimer, but what Tesla is exceedingly good at is extracting maximum value, because Elon Musk believes in the idiot index, and that is the cost difference between the raw material and the finished product. And if there's a large cost difference between those two, then by definition, you must be an idiot because you're not clever enough to transform the raw material into the finished product for a cheap enough ratio. So Tesla is hell bent on extracting value at every level of production. And that's why we've seen videos of the teardown of the Cybertruck, where they keep describing, even in the Highland model, does a Highland have front casting, Pete? That's one thing I haven't looked at.
No.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But the mere act of introducing a rear casting to the back of the Model 3 and Y, that saved something like 70 individual pieces of metal that had to be stamped with machines, glued together, bonded, fiducial marks checked, all that sort of stuff, all the accumulated errors. That was eliminated by a single part that actually required no other finishing. So, and that's the sort of thing that other car makers could have done, should have done, but haven't done. And Tesla's done it first and done it best. And that's what Tesla always does. It always strives to be better. So in essence, in fact, in this report for the humanoid robot, Tony Seba does say many companies will make huge amounts of money out of this, but there will always be some companies, a subset of those, that will do it better than the others. So, and the smart money is on Tesla to do that. Again, not financial advice.
Because they'll talk about the total addressable market as 44 trillion. So if you get a big chunk of that, that's massive sort of TAM that you're looking at. So,
well, there are many of us alive. I mean, look, I'm an electronics engineer. I remember in the old days when you were doing printed circuit boards, which was actually an innovation. Before then it was wire wrap, and you had to wire things up manually. Printed circuit boards, you used to get Letraset, which those of us at a certain age remember Letraset, but you used to be able to get it in rolls. So it's like a strip, and that used to be the tracks, and you'd have to get donuts and you would rub it onto the material, onto the transparency, and you'd do it at a 2:1 or a 4:1 scale, so everything's bigger and easier to deal with. You'd then have to optically reduce that and then print off circuit boards. That process would take many days. Today, anyone for free can get CAD software on the internet, design your circuit board from a schematic, all on your computer, send it off to PCBWay in China, and about a week later, you'll get the entire finished product. Finished.
amazing.
Something that was inconceivable 30 years ago, literally. As same with, people used to duplicate Bibles by hand and other books. And then you had a printing press, and then you had a computer, then you have smartphones where you don't even need to print it anymore. It just exists, and it exists at zero cost. Same as this YouTube video costs nothing to produce, which is just as well because I'm pretty tight. Whereas to do this 30 years ago would have cost thousands of dollars in a studio to do all the stuff you need to do. So that's the
exactly.
revolution that's
And
occurring.
you're looking at, and with Tesla, you know, they're talking about, you know, with their robots, once they know something, then it goes out to the fleet because they're talking about their robots as a fleet. So you're just sort of going, that's just going to be amazing. It's sort of the amount of money that these guys can make if they did like subscriptions for different things like chauffeur bot or, you know, maid bot or some other sort of bot or something like that. It's just the amount of money that these guys can make. It's just going to be massive.
To me, the big thing with
just
Tesla,
buying
the big
things,
advantage.
'cause
Sorry,
you know, like I was just going to say, like, you know, with the robot vacuums and stuff like that, they've got more and more complicated. Like mine vacuums and mops now, and it's like $2,500 or something like that. But could you imagine if you just had a robot that, you know, could chauffeur you around and all that sort of stuff, and it cost you $30,000? Of course you'd pay for it. Like us in Australia, definitely. Like everyone in here would have one, you know. You just go, oh, the amount of and that's just that where they, you know, they can have the robots in the factories already and things like that as well. So the amount of robots are going to be massive. The amount, it's like billions.
Mark, you were going to say something?
It's the end of us.
yeah.
Sorry.
I was just going to say the big advantage Tesla's going to have is the simple fact they're building it to manufacture. Everyone else is building ones that do this, do that. But how many can actually manufacture them at a reasonable cost? As we know, Ford, all the other big manufacturers, they can produce electric cars, but they can't make a profit at them.
Yeah.
They can't even make them profitably, let alone make them at number. And where Tesla's making them at number and making a profit.
Absolutely. Okay, so
that's
now,
the big advantage. One of the biggest advantages they're going to have.
And they weren't even first, you know, like GM, you know, put out their Bolt before the Model 3 came out, and you look what happened there, you know, that sort of stuff. Tesla doesn't have to be first; they just have to be the best product at a reasonable price.
Okay,
and
so
they'll capture most of the market.
Let's just make sure we haven't got any questions, especially from anyone that's new. If you've got any, apart from discussing how awesome Tesla is, which it is, and that the future is bright, have you got any even basic questions about the cars, driving them? Actually, let's just go. Has anyone got a question right now that we can answer? And I'll go to something else that just popped up a few days ago. No, everyone's good. Okay.
Sorry, Harold. Yep, I do.
Yes, go, Darren.
I put in the chat a moment ago the roof rails for Tesla Y. I'm still trying to debate on how to attach my stand-up paddleboard to my Model Y without cracking the roof. And
I don't think it will, because the rails aren't attached to the roof. They're not attached to the glass. They're attached to the.
They do.
The rail, but there's pad.
No, there is no rail. So the racks, so the Tesla racks, when you put them on, there's two little metal clips that go under the rubber seals on the glass, and that push up as you secure them down with some bolts. And even the Tesla OEM, which is a Yakima, I think it is, installed roof racks, people are complaining that they're cracking the glass. And this is what's worrying me.
The safest thing to do, if that's your concern, is to get one of those soft ones with the strap that goes underneath.
I did that, Pete. I bought the soft ones. Now, the problem is with the soft ones, which is terrible, and I hope no one from Tesla here is listening, is you can't close the window. Because the soft one straps angle the windows out. So you know how the windows open an inch? It actually forces the windows out just slightly. So I was doing that, thinking to myself, oh, how clever am I? And it was a perfect solution.
Okay then. So the other one is those suction
cups.
Yeah, and then you can have the foam. The foam bit that goes between the glass. The foam is what the paddleboard would rest on.
Yeah.
It's fixed down with those.
I was wondering if anyone's had any experience with those.
I've got some. I've had some for a couple of years. and they're actually really good. You need those sort of industrial strength ones where you you basically pump out the air out of them.
Sea Suckers is the brand I was going to buy.
That's it. Yep, the Sea Suckers.
But the picture in the post that I've just put up there was something I hadn't seen before, and that is roof rails. So you can attach the crossbars to the rails instead of to that.
That's a job.
Ah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So the rails would then go between the glass and
the rails sit on the metal attached to something in the gutter.
Gotcha.
And then the roof rack itself just goes across.
Attached to the rail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like such an easy solution, but I haven't seen anyone doing it.
Yeah. Okay. There is one other option. You can get one of those inflatable stand-up boards, and you can just chuck it in the boot.
No, I've got one of those as well. They're terrible.
So Darren,
you just need to pump them up real hard.
This is Tesla's one.
Yep. It's an OEM from Yamaha.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, but Tesla, I think Tesla can actually fit this for you. Now, surely if they fit it and you put an approved weight, whatever the capacity, oh, here we go, 74 kilos.
Yep.
If it breaks your window, it should be under warranty.
It is, but they're removable. And so those little side bits you've got there, the plastic things on the side, they come off and you just unscrew it. If you're not using it for a period of time, then you put it back on again.
Yeah.
And if you over torque them, they crack the glass. And this is what's happening in the States, is no one's touching them and the temperature is cracking the glass.
Yep.
So the metal little spigot that holds it and pushes up against the glass is cracking the glass.
Yeah. Right.
And Tesla are fighting people saying you've adjusted the bolt, and they haven't. So that's
gotcha. All right. Here's one last solution I've come up with. Get a trailer and put the roof racks on the trailer.
I think I'm going down the Sea Sucker road.
Yeah. Sea Sucker is the way to go. Yeah.
Yep. No, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Speaking of going down the road, I just want to address, people may have seen it in various social media outlets. I think it was highlighted in the Bell Tower Times. There was someone who was going across the Nullarbor and ran out of charge. And I think the important thing to highlight here is it was alleged that they left a location with 180 kilometers of indicated range and had to do 116 to make it, but ran out of charge. I think it was 9 kilometers short. Now, the thing is, there's a fundamental thing that applies to all Teslas. If you go slower, you'll get more range. If you go faster, you'll get less range. The indicated range that your car will say is not something you'll achieve on a very poor condition chip seal road in the middle of nowhere. One of the fundamental things you need to do is, firstly, if you're going to do a long road trip, just charge a bit more. Like, there's no point not leaving something like the place you're at without a substantial charge in your car, such as 3/4 or whatever. Now, the other thing is, sorry, 2 seconds, Pete. The other thing is, if you're driving along, and I think I mentioned this last week, I was driving this ridiculously large caravan, and all I had to do was get from Jurien Bay to Lancelin, which was like 100 kilometers, and I predicted that I needed to get less than 408 watt hours per kilometer, which is a stupendously poor efficiency. But I was punching into a Southwester with this big caravan. As I was driving along, I was monitoring how I was going, and I was consistently blowing it to like 460 watt hours per kilometer, as unbelievable as that sounds. Now, I could have just belligerently gone, yeah, but I need to travel 100 kilometers. I've got 370 kilometers in my battery. I'm just going to make it because I am and I want to make it. But you can't do that if all the indicators are you're chewing a lot more energy than you expect, and the car will indicate that you're not going to make it, the best thing to do is you either dramatically slow down or you stop, turn around, and fill back up to where you should have been before you left. And that's what I actually had to do at the turn off to Cervantes, to the Pinnacles, 20 k's down the road. I had to just man up, accept defeat, turn around, and start the process again by charging to 90% rather than 80%. So the main thing is, if ever you're in the middle of nowhere and you at the speed you're doing now, you're not going to make it, just slow down. For every 10% you slow down, you'll gain about 13% of extra range, and it's compounding. So please don't be one of these people that go,
So
it's okay. Sorry, what were you going to say, Pete?
Oh, so if you slow down from 110k to 90k, you'll gain about 30 to 33% of your remaining range.
That's correct.
Sound about right?
The corollary of that is, if you speed up, I don't know what the speed these people were doing, but if you go faster because it's an open road in the middle of nowhere or whatever, you will get dramatically less range than you otherwise would at the speed limit. So, you know, you may think, oh, I'm only doing an extra 15 k's an hour, you know, speed, but that will actually, let's call that 12%, 13%. That will cost you about 18%, 19%. And that 19% makes a big difference if all you had was a buffer of, you know, a few dozen kilometers on a reasonable trip. So please don't be one of these people. This guy apparently had to get someone, he was near Mundrabilla, or he was basically closer to Adelaide than he was to Perth, and had to get someone from Perth with a car trailer. And I know what that's like, towing a car trailer all the way, driving probably 1,200 kilometers to go and rescue his mate. You know, and in the process, he bricked it was a secondhand, I think it was a secondhand Model 3. It had the older lead acid battery, 12-volt battery. He bricked that. They had to jump start the battery, bearing in mind his car was fully depleted, the main pack, and that is not good for a main pack to be depleted for a long length of time. So he's actually slightly impaired the lifespan of his big battery for the sake of possibly charging at his original location for an extra half an hour or an hour on the AC. So please let that be a lesson to anyone. Just because you want something to happen, if the indicators are that you're not going to make it, just either slow down or turn around, go back to where you came from before you've burnt half your juice, and replenish what you should have put in there in the first place.
It's always good to have a good buffer and leave a lot of margin for error. So with Harold's example, it doesn't necessarily just have to be a trailer. You don't necessarily have to be towing something. When Harold and I did our laps around Australia, I averaged 160 watt hours per kilometre over about 13,000 kilometres. And the last leg from Merredin to Perth, I got caught up in really heavy rain and pretty strong headwind. And my efficiency spiked from 160 watt hours to over 320. So I basically halved my range in an instant. So that's why it's always pays to have a good buffer.
Absolutely. Now let's go back to something that is really exciting, which is this. So this used to be the Furniture Bazaar, former Furniture Bazaar site in Osborne Park, just down the road from the showroom, basically. It's about, I don't know, maybe 1.5 kilometres down the road. And they've already, the builders, which are Sarich, and they are the same builders that have almost finished the Carrington Street site. And in fact, the club got a tweet back from one of our members saying that they'd actually witnessed the enormous Tesla sign being fitted to the Carrington Street site today. But so this is basically going to have a huge Tesla sign on it. And in fact, I took a photo of this panel on Monday, and it wasn't actually finished, and now it is. So they're definitely progressing. But this is a 7,500 square meter site. That is 3 times the size of the Osborne Park showroom and service centre. So this is going to be a tremendous. It demonstrates Tesla's tremendous commitment to Western Australia, or to Perth. So we're going to have an awesome north site and a south site. And presumably this north
That'll
site
be
will also encompass the showroom and service centre. Don't know about a panel shop. That's probably something that's likely to happen at the Carrington Street site, or certainly at the Carrington Street site. But fantastic development. Alrighty. Anyone got any questions or comments?
Couple of bits of news. So FSD Supervise version 12.4 reportedly, Elon has confirmed on Twitter or on X that they'll do away with the steering wheel nag. So you won't have to have your hands on the steering wheel anymore, which is going to be quite huge. Obviously, this is for the US version. So, yeah, this doesn't apply in Australia. Not as yet, anyway. That was one. And, yeah, the other one is that we'll probably get some type of, but this is older news, some type of voice assistant. So Siri-like, probably based on Grok, presumably, some type of large language model, personal assistant in the car that you can talk to.
Absolutely. And that, in fact, that's actually already been done in China, but that's a different setup. But yeah, that'll be awesome to get that. Something that's also popped up very recently is a couple of images which are interesting, which is a Model 3 Highland, which has, if you look at a closer image, they've actually taken off the camera out of the B pillar and mounted it more backwards on the rear glass, and they've also altered the position of the indicator backwards facing camera on the front, and weirdly, this is really weird, they put a camera just slightly higher than its existing camera. And a lot of the pundits are wondering, why would you do that? And the speculation is that that's the relative position of the cameras that the new robotaxi will have. And they're already doing preliminary testing. It's the only explanation that makes sense.
Interesting.
Or is it for another OEM perhaps, whose car wants cameras in those positions?
My first thought was Cybertruck.
Me too, but the thing is, the Cybertruck already exists, so you would just drive a Cybertruck around. I mean, had this occurred before the Cybertruck came out, I would have thought, yeah, that's for the Cybertruck. That's definitely what I would have thought. But the Cybertruck already exists. So, and what's strange
And the
is,
Cybertruck's massive.
well, that's right, but you might have the similar relative distances. But what's interesting is it's implying, it's implying that's where the B pillar would be, or whatever you want to call it, of the limit of the robotaxi. But then that's implying it might have a large front door and maybe no back door, or is it?
Which would match what that that concept that Franz was in front of at one point. That sort of very futuristic bubble car looking.
Yeah, and I was showing that in the Hyperloop.
The two-door thing.
Yeah, I was showing that. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have that image handy, but yeah, so it's really interesting, just the relative positions that they've sort of stuck this one out a bit. I think they've done something here they've lifted this one up just very slightly, which is so subtle, but this one is significantly backwards. It's really interesting. But I guess we can wait until the 8th of August this year to watch the unveil of the Robotaxi.
Could it be the new Roadster?
Oh, because that exists too.
So big
Because
door.
we've got a prototype of the Roadster, and it's
Yeah.
lower. I mean, it's much lower than
Yeah.
this, much lower.
Yeah.
And
And
like I
no
said,
wing mirrors.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that might just be maybe for better visibility, not to interfere with the visibility of
Mm.
Oh yeah.
these cameras. And let's face
What
it, if
about
it's a
the more
Robotaxi, you don't need wing mirrors because there's no driver.
Yep.
No, unless the law says so.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, but if there's no steering wheel, then there's nothing to control. So then you've got to change the law.
Yep.
But yeah, it was really interesting just to see this such a subtle. I mean, look, that position is so subtle; it's just not funny. But obviously, they think it's important. But that's a little snippet of news as well. But like I said, we've got I
That's
don't know how
cool.
many sleeps, but we've got a few months, not many months to go before the 8th of August.
Less than 100 days now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it'll be
I-
sunny
I
and
would-
28 degrees.
Oh, and I was just thinking, we've played the disclaimer. Remember, if you've got shares, vote your shares if you haven't voted already.
Yeah.
As well, if you can.
If you can,
If you're
don't
with
buy shares
CommSec, you
through
should get an email or something.
Yeah, don't buy shares through NAB Trade because you cannot vote them.
It's if you actually
No.
use your vote, it's actually worth a lot more than you would think. Reason being, a lot of the shares that are owned by individuals, which are owned in custody or nominee companies, so they're not actually in your name, so you can't vote them. They usually abstain from voting. So yeah, and so let's say 30% of the shares are owned that way. That means that your vote is that much more powerful.
Yep.
Absolutely. Steve, you got your hand up.
I was just wondering if it's time to talk about the drive-throughs at Coconut.
Yeah, didn't we do that last week, or did we?
Yeah.
We're only here on
I
Saturday.
thought we did, didn't
Yes, I'm an idiot. Sorry, yes. Yes, my apologies, Steve. Let me just get my stuff together and bring up X.
Because it is a TOCWA initiative.
It was a random chance occurrence, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was. Let me just try and bring it up. Oh, X is so awesome. Come on, change people. Sorry about this. I've just got to go into Twitter instead of X.
I've just put pictures in the chat of what looks like the Tesla Robotaxi. That looks pretty amazing.
Damn it. Sorry, I'm just very distracted at the moment. Here we go. There. All right. So this is a group of I had my drone with me, and I was just happened to be towing my i20 because, well, what else are you going to do? And I got there, and there are all these other Teslas towing things, and I thought, oh, I better take a video of it. So this is indisputably Australia's best fast DC charging site, bar none, because all 6 lanes are trailer compatible. And actually the blue model, the blue Model 3 has actually came from Tasmania, and that was literally a chance occurrence that they were charging just as we turned up. So like I said, this is basically Australia's best fast DC charging site. The great thing too is for people who, because it's compatible with non-Teslas, if you've got a non-Tesla and your charge port is on the right-hand side of the car, then what you can actually do is go into this lane in that direction. Or if there was, say, my car wasn't there and you've got your charge port on the right-hand side, all you need to do is turn around and go the opposite direction.
Mm.
That way you're not blocking out that charger next to it for someone else. Because otherwise, say, if a Volvo XC90 or something, say, wanted to use the right-hand charge port, and say this car wasn't there, it would basically, or this car wasn't there, sorry, it would park here and plug into this port, and then a Tesla couldn't use this one. But actually, at least a Tesla can then turn the opposite direction and come this way and use it. So by having lanes that can go either direction, any car can charge at each location and not block out another car, which is really awesome. So yes, Steve.
Worth mentioning the BYD made it also.
Oh yes, so there's a BYD that's actually Sarah with Shane and Sarah's caravan, and this is Shane a horse float. So we've basically got a horse float, 2 caravans, a car, and Rob Dean coins this as a piece of space junk. And yeah, it is actually an extraordinary. I do have a photo of it that I took down the road, which was pretty cool, and I'll just upload that in 2 seconds. But yeah, so that was, yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Steve. It was something that we were planning to do for a long time, and we finally did it on Saturday. And many thanks, well, to you, Steve, for bringing your caravan, and to Shane and Sarah and Rob, and yeah, that's it. And also to the Tasmanian couple that actually were driving over from Tassie to Perth, and that was awesome to meet them as well. So yeah, there you go.
And if Shane were here, he would talk a bit about range anxiety too, wouldn't he? That horse float.
Oh yeah, it's funny because I had a little bet. Shane thought he would have no issues coming from his place to. He actually thought he could make it all the way to Kojonup, but he got to Williams with minus 1.3%. Minus 1.3%. So he was very close to stopping by the side of the road. But of course, his caravan's got 14 kilowatt hours or 15 kilowatt hours of battery storage and a charger, so he could easily have just rung Sarah and got her to rescue him with their caravan. So there you go. Alrighty, any questions or comments while I try and find this photo of the back of Rob Dean's car?
Yeah,
Yes.
got a question.
Oh yeah.
Yes, John.
Well, I'm planning to do the Tasmania trip, the AEVA conference.
Yes.
And I want to start thinking about when I get there and what I do. And I'm just wondering if you're going to get a sort of itinerary. So I'd like to do a few things with other TOCWA members while I'm there. I might go early. I'm wondering what it's going to be like for charging if the place is flooded with EVs and.
Okay, so in Tassie itself, there'll be no issue because there are plenty of fast DC chargers. Let me just adjust plug share. So what I'll do is I'll change the filters to just fast charging. Now, obviously, this map in November will be very much out of date. So there will basically be a lot more chargers around the place. But basically, so for example, you've got a fast DC charger at Nullarbor Roadhouse. And in fact, I just made a classic mistake then. I just clicked on this orange pin And what I should have done is actually zoomed in. And what you'll see is there are 2 pins. So this one is actually the NRMA fast DC charger site, off-grid, completely off-grid, with a diesel generator used only as a backup. And you can actually see there's quite a few cars that have charged there, and you can actually see the comments. Rob Fisher, the last one on the 12th of May. So there are going to be quite a few fast DC chargers en route, including almost certainly across the Nullarbor. So you'll have a WAEV network Horizon Power installed charger at Belladonna, one at Majura, I think Kaiguna, and Mundrabilla. You've also got the fast DC charger at Nullarbor, and in fact you can make it from Nullarbor to Ceduna in one hit, but there are likely to be other chargers. There'll probably be one at Penong, and then once you get into Ceduna, it's all milk and honey from there. Now, as far as what TOC was going to be doing, we're going to be undertaking a guided, well, there'll be quite a number of us going to Tasmania as part of a semi-group. Or put it this way, the EVA conference starts on the 1st of November through to the 3rd of November. That's a Friday through to a Sunday. On the Thursday, the 31st of October, is when TOC will be holding a casual meetup in Hobart. And what the intention is, it'd be good if you get like a blend of people traversing, because if 10 cars all went across the Nullarbor all at once, there'd be issues. There'd be people having to wait. And in fact, the most of the waiting would occur at night, which would be a problem because it's okay to wait for an hour for the next car, but if it's nighttime, people want to go to bed and they don't want to unhook their cars and all that sort of stuff. So it can become quite painful. So it's recommended that people, the only date that's important is for TOCWA members is the 31st of October and the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of November. It's preferable if some people incorporate a holiday to Tasmania as part of this project, but you either use the 31st of October as one of your latest days in Tasmania, which means you've actually left a couple of weeks before and you've got yourself across the Nullarbor, or you start your holiday in Tasmania near the 31st of October. So it means that there are only 1 or 2 or 3 cars traversing the Nullarbor on any day, perhaps.
Indeed,
Notwithstanding, there are other cars at random going backwards and forwards as well that have nothing to do with the trip. So that's what we're trying to sort of organise, and we've got James Maitland, one of our committee members, basically doing the planning for that. And we'll set it up so that even the most inexperienced drivers can do this, because it's not hard. There's just a couple of little principles that you need to keep in mind when you're doing a long trip like this. And, you know, we've actually gotten approval to get some extra spare tyres. We're going to procure a number of spare tyres, in fact, a total of 10. And there'll be a couple of different flavours of combinations of Model 3 compatible. And these aren't just a spare tyre, this is the entire kit. So it's got a built-in jack in the bag, wheel brace, the tyre itself in a bag. So it's nice and clean. So we'll be planning it so that, like I said, anyone with zero experience in road tripping can undertake this perfectly safely and without range anxiety and any of that sort of thing. But yeah, it's going to be great, and it's great, John, that you're going to go to Tassie as well. So you know, you're more than welcome to join us along, and it's going to be an awesome road trip, and we are going to claim it as the world's longest car kilometre road trips. If you multiply the number of cars by the kilometres travelled, we're going to claim that as the world's biggest road trip group.
Yeah.
So it's going to be
I'm
pretty
looking forward to
exciting.
it, and doing a little bit of planning myself. I was getting the tyre situation sorted, but or repair, etc. So yeah, yeah, it'll be good. Obviously I'm coming from Albany, so I'll be going through Esperance and up to Northman, I guess, and meeting you guys, maybe seeing someone on the way.
Yes, and to get from Esperance to get to Esperance from Albany, I don't recall the exact distance, but one thing that's great is there's been a lot of EV community lobbying of Minister Whitby and others to do something about Ravensthorpe, and we know that the Ravensthorpe site, the transformer was finally installed and it is energized, and there is a process that has to be undertaken for that site to be commissioned, and it's something that's being undertaken over the next few weeks, and that'll be great. Now, John, obviously, if you're planning today, what you see on PlugShare is not what is going to be the case in 4 or 5 months' time. So I'm quite confident that, see, at the moment, these are just 20 kilowatt chargers. The Kaiguna charger is probably never going to work again, the tritium. And again, Majura Pass is a 20 kilowatt Delta. They will all be superseded by 50 kilowatt chargers, touchwood reliable ones, provided through Horizon Power as part of the WAV network. So if you looked at the trip today, it looks a lot more arduous than it will be in November, or should I say October. So it'll be totally different.
That's
Really,
what I'm planning. That's what I'm hoping for, indeed.
Yes.
It'll be
And
a lot more evolved by
yes.
October, November. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm certain of that. You know, there'll be some of us carrying caravans, so that makes it even more interesting. You know, there's only been one couple that have ever done a around Australia trip in a caravan, and that's Shane and Sarah, who did it earlier this year in their standard range Model 3. So there'll be a couple of us carrying caravans. Some of us will be going the long way. It's going to be an awesome set of road trips.
Yeah. You're going over the top.
Sorry?
Are you going over the top?
Maybe. Yes. Yes. Might as well turn it into a lap. So, and by then I'll have my caravan set up. So yeah, it'll be good fun. It'll be good fun. But again, you don't have to bring a caravan. It's not required, but it certainly makes it fun.
Sure.
But we'll be keeping everyone up to date as the coming months evolve, and we'll start getting into some serious planning in September and getting indications of people that want to join in. And it's mainly to try and encourage people, like I said, not to all come in as one big, as good as it would look, one big convoy, because it'll just make it very busy and not as pleasant as it otherwise would be. But that's cool. We're going to manage that over the next few months.
Good.
Alrighty. Has anyone else got any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we might get to wrap this awesome show up a little bit early, which would be a turn up for the books. Nope. Okay. Well, it's one of those weeks. Unless you've got anything, Pete, we might wrap this up, and I might ask you, how would you wrap up an awesome show like this as if I didn't already know?
As always, stay safe, stay sustainable, and stay ahead of the curve.
The best way to do that is buy a Tesla, join TOCWA, and ask us anything about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Have an awesome week, everyone. Little snippet, I might hopefully have a little bit of good news for the WAV network next week, but we'll just see how that goes. But in the meantime, like I said, have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Ask Us Anything. Good night, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thanks, mate.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.